On this day in Tudor history, the 4th of November 1551, John Redman, theologian, royal chaplain, and the first Master of Trinity College, Cambridge, died of consumption. He was an extraordinary scholar who managed to walk the fine line between reform and tradition in one of England's most turbulent religious centuries. I'm historian Claire Ridgway, and let me tell you more about John Redman. Little is known about Redman's early life, but he's thought to have been the younger son of William Redman, a landowner with estates in Lancashire and Yorkshire, and his wife Margaret Tunstall, half-sister of Bishop Cuthbert Tunstall, the man who would later burn Tyndale's English New Testament at St Paul's. John Redman was educated first at Oxford, then St John's College, Cambridge, before going on to study in Paris. He became a Fellow of St John's in 1530, and by 1533 he was rector of Redmarshall in County Durham. The following year he took orders as subdeacon. In 1534 he earned his Bachelor of Theology, followed by a doctorate in 1537. Impressive achievements that marked him as one of the brightest minds of his generation. Redman's faith, however, was anything but straightforward. He accepted Henry VIII's royal supremacy, acknowledging the king as head of the church in England, but he also defended many traditional Catholic doctrines. He was, in short, a moderate, a careful man of learning who sought to reconcile scholarship, faith, and royal policy. By 1538, he'd risen to one of the most prestigious academic posts in the realm, Lady Margaret Professor of Divinity at Cambridge, a position he held until 1542. That same year, he was appointed Archdeacon of Taunton and Warden of King's Hall, the college that would later be absorbed into Trinity. Redman also served Henry VIII directly as one of his chaplains, and in 1540 he was a member of the convocation that ruled on the annulment of the king's marriage to Anne of Cleves. Just a few years later, in December 1546, he was appointed as the very first Master of Trinity College, Cambridge, the new foundation created by merging King's Hall and Micklehouse at Henry VIII's command. His theological writings included De Justificatione, presented to Henry VIII in 1543, and contributions to a necessary doctrine and erudition for any Christian man, sometimes called the King's Book. These works reflected his attempt to balance reformist humanism with traditional theology, a stance that kept him respected by both conservatives and moderate reformers alike. When Edward VI came to the throne, Redman continued to serve the new regime. He preached before the young king in 1548 and even helped prepare the Edwardian Prayer Book. But in his later years, he became increasingly uneasy with the direction of the Protestant Church. The pace of reform under Edward was too radical for him. Ashley Null, his biographer, summed him up perfectly. Redman died as he had lived, an Erasmian theologian. His long-standing commitment to Christian moralism prevented him from accepting justification by faith alone, while his patristic scholarship led him to reject transubstantiation, leaving him committed to a real but ambiguously spiritual presence. In other words, Redman stood somewhere between the old faith and the new, neither fully Catholic nor fully Protestant, but a learned man seeking a middle path guided by reason and conscience. John Redman died of consumption on the 4th of November 1551. He was buried with honour in Westminster Abbey in the North Transept. His writings and scholarship mark him as one of the leading theological minds of the early English Reformation. A man who served both Henry VIII and Edward VI, and who tried against all the odds to hold faith and intellect in balance during one of the most divided times in England's history. If you enjoyed this look at John Redman and the shifting world of Tudor religion, please do like, subscribe and ring the bell for more on this day in Tudor history. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.